Solar PV Cast from the Atlantic Canada Solar Summit at the Halifax Convention Center. A lot of like-minded people just trying to further solar, learn more about solar. I'm excited to have a guest here, Jess Scott from the province of Nova Scotia, the Natural Resources
And renewables.
and Renewables.
Yeah. So
Okay,
I'm on the clean energy branch
There we go.
with NRR, and I think it's more about distributed energy resources this year than it is specifically about solar, which is nice. That we're not just talking about one technology, we're talking about all of them, and I've heard it all today so far. So smart inverters, power factor corrections, like really geeky technology stuff that'll just help the transition and
Totally.
help the help renewables like on the grid because they're so variable. Because we need to fill the valleys, we need to shave the peaks,
Totally.
and just kind of have more level load.
Yeah, well, and that's what's wonderful about these events. It's all about that education so that we can all work together to, I like the way you put it, shave the peaks, fill the valleys, and come to that happy place. Because, the adoption for solar is happening fast, or renewables is happening fast, but there's still a lot of, challenges, and so we're trying to solve them.
Yeah, but there's a lot less challenges, it feels
Totally.
like. And seeing the evolution of this over the past couple of years, the things that we're talking about are just so much more specific because we have all that more experience.
Yeah.
We know this works, we know this doesn't, and now we're trying to work out this kink in this situation or whatever.
How long have you been a part or keeping your eyes on the renewable energy sector in Nova Scotia and
I mean, I got into the energy sector in 2006, so
Okay.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
I started in energy efficiency. I actually started in university. I put myself through university working at a collections department of New Brunswick Power, NB Power.
Okay.
And before any kind of concepts, when I was dealing with people that were being disconnected for non-payment, to me, my first thought is, well, if their bills weren't so high, they wouldn't have this problem. Why are their bills so high and others not? Their homes are less efficient. And just like the concept of energy efficiency was an aha moment of like, yeah, this is easy. This is an easy decision. People can make that decision. And for low income homeowners, for example, here, there's programs for that's free of charge.
Yeah.
And so efficiency is really like step one. You need to be as efficient as possible before you think about adding solar or renewables or battery or any of that. Your consumption needs to be as low as possible.
Yeah.
A lot of what we're talking today isn't energy or consumption, it's demand. So it's like that the most amount of power that you need at any one time, and you might only need it for an hour or 15 minutes, but you need it, and if you don't have it, it'll be a blackout. So what we're talking about today, a lot of it is managing that load. Like how do we bring that load down, because we're electrifying. People are installing heat pumps.
Totally.
People are buying
EVs.
EVs, all the stuff. So it's like our energy consumption is going up, which means our load is going up. But we don't want to build another fossil fuel power plant. We don't want to build another natural gas power plant. That's Nova Scotia Power's solution because they make money off that. But our solution is bringing the load down instead, which will save ratepayers immensely.
Exactly. And that's where that education comes in on that piece.
Yep.
Right? Consume less and we all win.
Yeah.
And rather than building the fossil fuel plant, let's all work together on this. What I've heard today, there's a few programs. In Halifax, there's the Solar City program and things like that. What are some things from your side of things with the province of Nova Scotia? You mentioned there's accessibility options for programs to help low income get into solar as well.
Yep.
Can you talk about a few of those options?
Yeah, so with the low income program right now is on energy efficiency.
Okay.
Hoping to incorporate solar in the near future because solar will help low income, any income level, bring their consumption down. If you add energy storage to that, because of course, like you're bringing your consumption down, but as soon as the sun goes down, you're back on the grid again.
Yeah.
So if you have storage, and it doesn't even have to be like a energy or battery wall, it's really expensive. If you're in the outlook for an electric vehicle in the next couple of years, that battery can be your battery, your
whole
home's
home backup.
battery.
Yeah,
exactly.
that's exciting.
Exactly. And so what we're working towards vehicle to grid integration. So actually paying, like getting like ratepayers or homeowners, EV owners can get paid to not charge during certain times of the day. And that's the peak times when the load is at its highest.
Yeah.
And so there's more value in paying an EV owner to not charge during certain
Yeah,
times than
interesting.
it is to build a new power
Yeah.
plant.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
Now, home base for the podcast for myself is BC. One thing I noticed immediately coming out east is everything's older. And obviously, how is the province and how are you dealing with that? You know, you've got a lot, my house is built in 1961. I'm like, oh man, that's an old BC house.
Oh, wow.
But
no, we
of
still have
course,
seaweed in our walls. Sometimes Cape Breton,
Yeah.
you'll see seaweed as insulation in some
Right.
older, like 100-year-old homes.
So how does that work in this transformation, passive housing and energy efficiency? I mean, it costs a lot more.
It does cost a lot more. So there's energy efficiency, and then there's deep energy retrofits, the other DER.
Okay.
And so that's okay. So that, first of all, that's looking at the home as a whole system, and you're
Right.
not just looking at the heating system and then other things. You're looking at it all together. And sometimes it can involve, like, if you have like rock walls or whatever, and you can't insulate from the inside, maybe that's like paneling on the outside.
Right.
Either way, it's not inexpensive. It's a more expensive endeavor for sure. And so making it as airtight as possible, and then if possible, if the layout allows like heat pumps, as opposed to, heat pumps are way more efficient than baseboard heating. So we're in the process of getting people off oil. We're really oil dependent here in Nova Scotia for home heating.
Okay.
And so we're trying to electrify, because oil is a fossil fuel and we want to get off oil, but also the grid will be green by 2030. And so the more people that electrify, the less greenhouse gases and carbon emissions
Right.
overall.
Yeah. The province of Nova Scotia is in support. I mean, there's solar homes program and things like that. The province is on board for heading this way.
So we've been this way for some time, actually. We're actually like in the process of picturing the next phase. So it's maybe not
cool.
incenting you for your solar panels or
Yeah.
for your EV. Maybe it's incenting you to charge your EV not during peak time,
Right.
or to use your solar to charge your EV during the peak time during the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those kind of incentives of like
Again,
time of use kind of
consumption.
stuff.
Yeah.
So again, to fill those valleys and shave those
Yeah.
peaks, it's just about shifting when you're consuming. And then in the later future, instead of just peak and non-peak, there will be, when the wind is blowing and when the wind is not blowing, and that's
Right.
like minute to minute kind
Yeah,
of thing.
yeah.
And we have a new independent system operator coming on next year in 2025, and so that will be their role to not only forecast what they need coming up in the next year or 10 years, but also like down to minute.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and forecasting's huge because, like you said, consumption is. We're in this weird spot where we're learning that we need to consume less, but then everything coming at us consumes electricity.
Right.
So-
Everything's electric. Everything's electrifying. So we need to figure out how to do it smartly.
Yeah. And the what was I going to say? Something about the infrastructure. Yeah, infrastructure. Is that in place? Is the system? Can the Nova Scotia grid handle what's coming?
Well, that's what we're working on. It can, but power needs to be reliable, and it needs to. So we're hearing a lot today about inertia of power plants and how that helps and stuff like that, and how wind doesn't have inertia. But there's also benefits to turning on like that as opposed to ramping up. The
Yeah.
ramp up of power plants and the ramp down. Well, they don't usually ramp down until they shut off, but the ramp up is what takes the time and consumes the energy.
Yeah.
So if you can just turn something on or turn something off, back to the minute to minute, in the future when the wind is blowing, your kilowatt hour will be cheaper than when the wind isn't blowing and you're getting like thermal, like natural gas thermal
Right,
energy.
yeah.
That's going to be a more expensive kilowatt hour, so your pricing will change based on the variability of renewables.
Right. It's also interesting. Comes back to kind of that education side of things again, teaching people, to your point, incentivizing them to use the dryer in the day or when it's windy and things like that, which is kind of takes us right back to 300, 400, 500 years ago, or whatever,
Right.
when you're drying the laundry on a sunny day,
Yep.
or you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's because we've come accustomed to, I want power at 2 a.m. You can have it.
Yep. Yep.
And so there's this big kind of exciting piece about, on another episode of the podcast, there's a couple that has gone solar off grid, and they've changed it so they'll use their power tools when the sun's shining, and when it's nighttime, they'll kind of hunker down and just relax and take it easy.
And some people can do that, but some people's lifestyles aren't conducive to that.
Mhm.
So for that, the answer would be like the automation
Right.
portion of it. And
Yeah.
so once we have aggregators in place, that all of your home, like if you have a smart home, for example, if you have a smart thermostat that's controlling your mini split, if you have a smart device on your electric hot water heater, if you have like timers and like those kind of stuff, all of that can be configured through an aggregator, can configure all those tens of thousands or millions of devices to tweak at different times when
Right.
needed. So
Yeah,
the
yeah.
wind is blowing, we don't need this as much. The wind isn't blowing or the sun isn't shining, okay, we need to tweak to like turn down a degree here or whatever to like reduce
Yeah.
that load.
And automation is a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
for
so
sure.
that could be like through aggregators, or you can automate it yourself. You can either go to your control and manually turn it down, or you can go on an app on your phone and
Yeah.
do it, or you can sign up with an aggregator and they can do it for you.
Right.
I think there's going to be some convincing going on there because not everybody wants to give their control. Giving up control is hard, right?
Yeah, that's the thing
So
too. I don't want
even my
someone in
partner is
house.
like, we're not going to have that house. And I'm like, well, and it's weird to think about because like cybersecurity is a huge issue.
Yeah,
And I was talking
yeah.
about this earlier today. I was like, I don't know who they are, and I know it's not me, but I hope that there's people out there that are dealing with that side of the equation because it's
My
a
neighbor.
huge side.
My
Okay,
neighbor
good.
works in that world.
Okay,
So,
good.
It's from Halifax, actually. Victoria neighbor from Halifax.
There you
Shout out
go.
to Greg.
Good. Thank you for working on that. Because
Yeah.
it's one thing to convince somebody of the technology, like this is gonna do this for you and it's gonna
Right.
save you money this way. But to put that trust in the
Yeah.
technology is like, I don't have that yet. I'm
Yeah.
not there yet.
Solar Nova Scotia. They are incredible in this province.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any thoughts on what they've done? I mean, this event is kind
Yeah.
of their doing, and
It's bigger every
there's-
year.
It's bigger every year, and
Yep.
the policy, I think it was a year or two ago, NS Power was going to do something regarding net metering, I believe, and
Mhm.
they stepped in and they pulled right back out.
There was a huge revolt a couple years ago in Nova Scotia over solar. Nova Scotia Power decided that they were going to charge a per kilowatt
That's right.
user charge or whatever
Yeah.
that would negate all of your solar savings. All of
Yeah,
your solar savings would have to be going back to Nova Scotia Power. And so Solar Nova
That's not
Scotia as
cool.
an industry association said no, but it was
Yeah.
the people. The
Yeah.
people, it wasn't even Solar Nova Scotia. It was the people that were like, what? Even people that didn't have solar was like, no, I'm not giving
Yeah,
you money.
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I'm not going to like pay all this money
Yeah.
to install solar to give you my proceeds. Like, that makes no sense. But to Nova Scotia Power, so, producing your own electricity obviously reduces their sales to you for kilowatt hours. And when you're not buying their kilowatt hours, but you need their distribution lines to get from the power pole to your house or what have you, they still need to charge customers for that infrastructure. So I understand where the notion of the fee came from,
Right.
but it's just not the way to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so and
That's where
everybody
the
stood up.
conversations happen.
Yep. And so as a result to that, people were like, no, you're not doing that. And also we want more. Before 2022, a commercial entity could only install up to 100 kilowatts on their roof. And so IKEA came to Dartmouth a bunch of years ago. They have, it's IKEA, so you can imagine how big it is.
Yeah.
They put 800 kilowatts
Wow.
on their roof, but they could only consume or use 100 of it at the time.
That's right.
Right? So that's silly. That's
Yeah.
madness. That's
Yeah.
if you've got the roof space, if you got the space, do it, right? And so now commercial businesses can go, I mean, if you're a smaller business and you don't have a demand charge, you can go up to 200 kilowatts.
Okay.
And if you're a larger business with a demand charge, or if you're a farm, or if you're an aquaculture or winery, then you can go up to a megawatt.
Yeah, incredible. Solar Nova Scotia is a large part of the reason why Nova Scotia is kind of leading the country when it
Mhm.
comes to this.
Yeah, and so this morning, Dave Brush at the chair, he's fantastic. He addressed the crowd this morning at the morning address, and he was talking about how New Brunswick reached out to him to talk about starting a Solar New Brunswick and how he's working with Efficiency PEI on that kind of stuff. My thought is, why silo the Maritimes? Like, we're all so small out here. Why don't we just have like an
Yeah.
Atlantic association, and
Yeah.
then we can pool each other's resources? I see Efficiency PEI is here. I know that they're in the session I'm going to jump into here in a minute, talking about their solar gardens. They're like high percentage of solar on the island because they're so small.
Yeah.
They have such a small impact, so they can do that kind of stuff. And so if we all kind of banded
Yeah.
together, we would just be mightier.
Pool your resources.
Yep.
100%.
Yeah, well,
Amazing.
that's what we're talking about here today.
Yeah.
So why don't we do it as the Maritimes?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
hopefully in the future it might be like the electricity system also. Like we've already got a line from Labrador, from Newfoundland and Labrador, giving us clean hydro. And so why can't we all just kind of work together?
Why can't we all just get along? That's the message.
We all get along. We just need
Why can't we
to.
all?
It's just more efficient to do
Yeah.
some things together when you're the smallest provinces in the country, like compared to BC. Like BC is so big and spread out, and we're so compact and together. Like let's just
Yeah.
work together. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah. You're all in the same boat. Let's row the same way.
Exactly.
Totally.
Yeah.
Amazing. Jess Scott from Natural Resources with the province of Nova Scotia joining the Solar PV Cast. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great talking to you.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so good. You're a
Great to
pro.
talk to you.
Yeah, that was great.
I will see
Are
you
you giving?
around.
Are you giving